General Harrison had commanded classified operations for 20 years. That night, the woman at his door was the wife of Sergeant Miller, who he'd told had died in training 6 months ago. In her hand was her husband's final message: "General Harrison knows the truth." That night, the general cried in front of his wife for the first time. Welcome to the Silent Service Stories. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss new videos. Fort Bragg, North Carolina, sprawls across 163,000 acres of pine forests, making it the largest military installation in the world by population. Home to the 18th Airborne Corps and U.S. Army Special Operations Command, it represents the beating heart of America's rapid deployment capabilities. Within its heavily secured perimeters, behind reinforced walls and classified briefing rooms, decisions are made that shape the course of global conflicts. The main command building rises 4 stories above the parade grounds, its windows reflecting the setting sun like amber eyes watching over thousands of soldiers. Inside, corridors lined with portraits of distinguished commanders stretch in every direction, each face telling a story of service, sacrifice, and the crushing weight of command. But none of those portraits could capture the complexity of General Robert Harrison's story. At 52, General Harrison commanded respect, earned through a 25-year career, decorated with commendations that read like a catalog of modern military excellence. The Medal of Honor hung at the center of his chest, flanked by the Silver Star, Bronze Star with V device, and Purple Heart. Each piece of metal represented moments when his leadership meant the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. On this particular Thursday evening in late October, General Harrison sat alone in his corner office, autumn shadows stretching across mahogany furniture that had served commanders for decades. The walls displayed the usual military memorabilia, but Harrison's attention was fixed on a red folder at the corner of his desk. Operation Blackout, Top Secret SCI, read the classification marking. Those words had been stealing his sleep for 6 months. 6 months ago, 8 of America's finest soldiers had died in what their families were told was a training accident at Fort Bragg. The notification letters had been carefully crafted, the memorial services dignified, and the death benefits promptly processed. But every word of those official communications had been a lie, and General Harrison was the architect of that deception. The truth was far more complex than any training mishap. Operation Blackout had been a targeted elimination mission against Abu Hassan, a financial coordinator for ISIS operations along the Syrian-Iraqi border. Intelligence reports suggested Hassan would be meeting with cell leaders at a compound outside Aleppo. The target was too valuable to ignore. Hassan's network channeled millions of dollars to terrorist operations worldwide, and his elimination could cripple ISIS funding for years. But intelligence in the middle of a civil war is never certain. Probability of success, 60%. Acceptable loss threshold, 40%. For General Harrison, approving Operation Blackout meant accepting that some soldiers under his command might not come home. The team he'd selected represented the best Fort Bragg had to offer. Alpha Team was led by Sergeant James Miller, a 28-year-old veteran of 3 Afghanistan deployments who'd earned his Green Beret through tactical brilliance and unshakable calm under fire. His team included Corporal David Chen, a medic whose quick thinking had saved dozens of lives. Specialist Maria Rodriguez, a communications expert fluent in Arabic, and Private First Class Kevin O'Brien, barely 22 but already showing special operations potential. Bravo Team was commanded by Staff Sergeant Marcus Williams, whose sniper skills were legendary even among Special Forces veterans. His roster included Sergeant Lisa Thompson, an explosives expert who could disarm IEDs blindfolded, Corporal Ryan Jackson, whose human intelligence gathering was unmatched, and Specialist Anthony Garcia, whose precision with close-quarters combat was extraordinary. 8 soldiers, 8 of the finest warriors America had ever produced, and General Harrison had sent them into a trap. The mission had gone wrong from the moment the teams hit the ground. The intelligence was fatally flawed. Hassan wasn't at the compound, and what appeared to be a routine meeting was actually an elaborate ambush. The terrorist network had been feeding false information to American intelligence assets for months, and Operation Blackout was the culmination of their deception. Alpha and Bravo teams found themselves surrounded by more than 50 enemy fighters in a compound designed specifically to be a killing field. The classified after-action reports painted a picture of exceptional bravery against overwhelming odds. For nearly 4 hours, 8 American soldiers held off an enemy force 6 times their size while calling in air support that couldn't reach them due to surface-to-air missile threats. But here's what made their sacrifice truly heroic. When the teams realized they'd walked into a trap, they discovered 12 civilian hostages being held in the compound's lower level. Instead of immediately extracting, they chose to rescue those innocents first. The final radio transmission came from Sergeant Miller at 0347 hours. "Control, this is Alpha Leader. Civilians are secure and clear of the compound. We're taking heavy fire from all directions. Estimate 50-plus enemy fighters. We've done our job. Those people are going home to their families. If we don't make it out, tell my wife I love her. Tell her Emma should be proud of her daddy. Tell her this wasn't for nothing. Alpha Leader, out." 3 minutes later, the compound exploded in a fireball visible from orbit. Hassan's fighters had chosen martyrdom over capture, detonating enough explosives to level the entire structure. When Delta Force recovery teams reached the site 18 hours later, they found only rubble and scattered remains. All 8 Americans were listed as killed in action, but their deaths presented General Harrison with an agonizing dilemma. Operation Blackout was part of a classified program that officially didn't exist. Acknowledging American forces were conducting targeted elimination missions inside Syria would create a diplomatic crisis that could destabilize the entire region. General Harrison made the hardest decision of his career. The families would be told their soldiers had died in a training accident at Fort Bragg. The deaths would be ruled accidental, and the truth would remain buried in classified files. For 6 months, General Harrison had lived with that lie. He'd stood at attention during 8 military funerals, had looked into the eyes of widows and children, and told them their heroes had died during routine training. He'd signed condolence letters, authorized death benefits, and maintained the fiction that these warriors had simply been unlucky. But secrets have a way of demanding payment, and on this October evening, General Harrison's debt was about to come due. At 9:30 p.m., the doorbell of his modest off-base home rang with the persistence of someone who wouldn't be ignored. General Harrison was in his den with his wife Margaret, watching the evening news and trying to pretend retirement planning occupied his thoughts instead of classified operation reports. When he opened the door, he found Sarah Miller standing on his front porch, her face set with the determination that comes from months of unanswered questions. "General Harrison," she said, her voice steady despite tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. "I have James's final message. We need to talk, now." Harrison felt his heart rate spike. "Sarah, this is quite late. Perhaps we could schedule something in my office tomorrow." "No," Sarah interrupted, producing an envelope from her purse. "Right now. This has been killing me for 6 months. I know where James really died." The general glanced back at Margaret, who was watching from the doorway. In 25 years of marriage, she'd never seen the expression of fear now written across her husband's face. "Margaret, honey, why don't you head upstairs?" Harrison said quietly. In the living room, surrounded by family photos and the comfortable remnants of a military family's life, Sarah opened the envelope with hands that trembled only slightly. Inside was a handwritten letter on standard military stationery. "My dearest Sarah," the letter began in James's careful block printing. "If you're reading this, I'm probably not coming home from this one. There's something I couldn't tell you before we left. This isn't a training exercise. We're going operational, and the target is real. Location: Syrian border, approximately 15 clicks northwest of Aleppo. Mission: high-value target elimination. General Harrison knows every detail of what we're walking into, including the probability that some of us won't make it back. If something happens to me, I need you to know the truth. We're not training casualties. We're warriors, and we knew the risks. The families deserve to know we died doing what we swore to do, protecting innocent people. I love you and Emma more than words can express. Take care of our baby girl. Tell her Daddy was proud to serve. And Sarah, make sure the truth comes out. We deserve that much. Forever yours, James. General Harrison's hands shook as he read the letter, each word hitting him like a physical blow. The careful military language couldn't disguise the fear of a soldier heading into an operation he might not survive, or the love of a husband and father who wanted his family to understand why he'd made the ultimate sacrifice. "You lied to me," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You lied to all of us. James died in Syria, not Fort Bragg. And you knew it was going to happen, didn't you?" General Harrison looked up from the letter, meeting Sarah's eyes for the first time since she'd arrived. This was the moment every commanding officer dreads, when the weight of command collides with the human cost of military operations. "Sarah," he began, then stopped. "How do you explain the impossible calculus of modern warfare to a woman whose husband paid the ultimate price?" "Try me," Sarah said, echoing her husband's direct communication style. "Why did my husband die? I want the truth, all of it." General Harrison took a deep breath and began to dismantle 6 months of carefully constructed lies. "James was right about everything," he said slowly. "It wasn't training. It was a classified operation targeting Abu Hassan, a high-value financial coordinator for ISIS. Our intelligence sources indicated he would be at a compound outside Aleppo, meeting with cell leaders to coordinate attacks on European targets." "Who is Abu Hassan?" Sarah asked. "He was ISIS's financial architect," Harrison explained. "The man responsible for channeling millions of dollars to terrorist operations worldwide. Taking him out would have crippled their ability to fund attacks for years." Sarah listened, but the anger in her eyes was growing brighter. "So you sent 8 soldiers after one man?" "It's never that simple," Harrison said, moving to the window. "Hassan was heavily protected, and the compound was essentially a fortress. We needed soldiers capable of precision strikes in urban terrain." "But something went wrong." "Everything went wrong," Harrison admitted. "The intelligence was compromised. Hassan wasn't there. The whole thing was a setup. Our people walked into an ambush." "And you sent them anyway." "I sent them based on the best intelligence available," Harrison said, turning back to face Sarah. "But you're right. I signed the order. I approved the mission. 8 soldiers died because of my decision." "Why didn't you tell the families the truth?" It was the question Harrison had been dreading for 6 months. "Because revealing Operation Blackout would have exposed classified programs that protect American lives every day," he said. "Because confirming our presence in Syria would have endangered ongoing operations and diplomatic relationships. Because their lives were worth less than your secrets." The accusation hung in the air like battlefield smoke. "Sarah, I'm a soldier," Harrison said, his voice breaking slightly. "I've worn this uniform for 25 years. Sometimes you have to make decisions that will haunt you forever." "James had a daughter," Sarah said, standing up. "Emma is 8 years old. Every night she asks me how Daddy died, and I tell her what you told me, that it was an accident. How do I explain to her that her father was a hero who died protecting innocent people when you've spent 6 months lying about it?" Harrison walked to his desk and pulled out a thick folder marked with security classifications Sarah had no clearance to see. But at this point, regulations seemed less important than truth. "This is the real after-action report," he said, handing her the classified documents. "James and his team weren't just trying to eliminate a terrorist. When they realized they'd walked into a trap, they could have extracted immediately. Instead, they chose to rescue 12 civilian hostages being held in the compound's lower level." Sarah took the folder with trembling hands, scanning pages of operational details that painted a picture of extraordinary heroism under impossible circumstances. "What was James's final transmission?" she asked. Harrison pulled out the official transcript of all radio communications and read aloud. "Control, this is Alpha Leader. Civilians are secure and clear of the compound. We're taking heavy fire from all directions. We've done our job. Those people are going home to their families. If we don't make it out, tell my wife I love her. Tell her Emma should be proud of her daddy. Tell her this wasn't for nothing." Sarah began to cry, but these weren't tears of grief. They were tears of pride mixed with rage that 6 months of lies had denied her. "So what happens now?" she asked. General Harrison closed his eyes. "I don't know, Sarah. I've been carrying this secret for 6 months. Every night I see their faces. Do the other families know? No, you're the first person outside the classified community to learn the truth. Sarah stood up, her decision already made. General, I need you to do something. What? Tell the other families the truth. They deserve to know how their loved ones really died. Harrison nodded slowly. That will end my career. Court-martial, possible prison time, loss of pension, and benefits. But you'll do what's right. That night, after Sarah left, General Harrison climbed the stairs to his bedroom, where Margaret was pretending to sleep. He sat in the chair beside their bed, and for the first time in 25 years of military service, he wept. Not just for the 8 soldiers he'd lost, but for the man he'd become in the aftermath of their deaths. The next morning, General Harrison arrived at his office to find his deputy, Colonel Patricia Hayes, waiting with a grim expression. Sir, we have a situation. The families are here. How many? All 8 families, sir. Widows, parents, children. They're in the main briefing room. Sarah Miller told them everything. Harrison straightened his uniform and looked out at Fort Bragg's parade grounds, where young soldiers were conducting morning physical training under the Carolina sun. In a few minutes, he would tell those families the truth about Operation Blackout, and his career would be over. Colonel, get me a secure line to the Pentagon. I need to speak with General Mackenzie. Sir? It's time for the truth, Colonel. Those families deserve to know how their soldiers really died. When General Harrison entered the briefing room, he saw 8 families whose lives had been shattered by official lies. Sarah Miller sat in the front row, flanked by the other widows. Behind them, parents clutched photographs of sons and daughters. Children who would grow up without fathers and mothers sat quietly, too young to understand, but old enough to sense the gravity. Ladies and gentlemen, General Harrison began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to reveal. 6 months ago, I told you that your loved ones died in a training accident here at Fort Bragg. That was not true. The silence was absolute. Your husbands, your sons and daughters, died in Syria during a classified operation called Blackout. They were conducting a targeted elimination mission against a terrorist coordinator, and I was the officer who sent them. Maria Rodriguez's mother stood up. Why did you lie to us? Because I was afraid, Harrison said simply. Not of national security implications, but of this moment, of looking into your eyes and admitting that I failed them. For the next 2 hours, General Harrison told them everything. The mission objectives, the intelligence failures, the ambush, and most importantly, the heroic decision to rescue 12 innocent civilians before attempting their own extraction. When he finished, Kevin O'Brien's father approached the podium. General, he said, thank you for finally telling us the truth. Can you forgive me? Harrison asked. The older man nodded. Son, my boy died a hero. That's all that matters now. The following week, General Harrison was called to the Pentagon. Court-martial proceedings were initiated, but something unexpected happened. The 8 families submitted a collective petition, not for his prosecution, but for military reform. They wanted changes to ensure other families wouldn't endure months of lies while grieving their heroes. 6 months later, General Harrison took early retirement, but before leaving Fort Bragg, he oversaw the construction of a memorial in the base's center. 8 names were engraved in black granite, along with the truth. They died protecting innocent lives in Operation Blackout, Syria, 2023. Today, General Harrison lives quietly in Virginia, working with Gold Star families and advising the Pentagon on how to communicate the realities of classified operations to bereaved families. Every year, on the anniversary of Operation Blackout, he visits Fort Bragg to stand before that memorial. The inscription he added reads, I failed you in life, but I will not fail your memory. Sarah Miller now serves as president of the Gold Star Wives Organization, working alongside General Harrison to ensure military families receive the truth they deserve, even when that truth is painful. This story isn't just about a general's guilt or a widow's quest for truth. It's about the price of secrecy in a democracy, about the weight of command, and about the courage it takes to choose truth over career. General Harrison lost his 25-year military career, but he saved something more valuable. The legacy of 8 American heroes who deserve to be remembered for what they really were, warriors who chose to save innocent lives even when it meant sacrificing their own. In the end, real leadership isn't about making perfect decisions. It's about owning your mistakes and accepting the consequences, no matter how devastating they might be. James Miller, David Chen, Maria Rodriguez, Kevin O'Brien, Marcus Williams, Lisa Thompson, Ryan Jackson, and Anthony Garcia are no longer buried in classified files. Their names stand in the center of Fort Bragg, where every soldier can see them and understand what true courage looks like. Not just in battle, but in choosing to do what's right when everything is on the line. Every day, new soldiers pass that memorial and learn a lesson that no military manual can teach. That honor isn't just about following orders. It's about having the courage to tell the truth, even when that truth cost you everything. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that behind every military operation are real families paying real prices, please subscribe to the Silent Service Stories. We tell the stories that matter, the ones about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, about the price of freedom, and about the heroes who pay that price in silence. Because some stories are too important to remain classified forever.